Well, hello everybody out there in Atlanta. This is Chris from HLRC.com with another exciting episode of Topher's Vlog. The time has come. We are going to recap Halloween Horror Nights 31 and give my overall sort of impressions on the event this year. It's been a long year. It's been a crazy year. A lot of things have occurred even throughout the course of this Halloween Horror Nights season. Some things in my personal life, as I alluded to at the beginning of the season, even at the beginning of the year, and other stuff that has gone on, some crazy stuff. Close friends of mine have had a tough go this year, which sort of I think that kicked off the very start of the event, the night of the media. The media stuff basically, I think, set the tone for how this year was going to go. It is what it is. But anyway, so I know that I have not put out as much content this year as much as I usually do. And again, I am appreciative of that, the patience that you all, those who do follow me and do like my stuff. I know that I'm still a small fish in a big pond, but I do have people that follow me. People like what I have to say, apparently, so it is what it is. I appreciate the support that you guys have given me this year. It has not been a good year mentally for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people. I've been struggling. I've been struggling mentally. I have not been shy about some of the struggles that I have dealt with this year. It is what it is, and it kind of some of my wrap up here is some of that stuff will kind of tie into things as we move forward. Most notably about the shows. I did not get a chance to see. I'm shooting this. It's about a week. It's the Tuesday before Halloween, so the event has not yet ended. But I think I'm far enough along that I can give my thoughts and impressions on the houses, scare zones, and other things, and just give my overall feelings on it. In terms of the shows, like I was alluding to, I did not get a chance to see Nightmare Fuel in person. I did watch what was available online, so I got kind of a feel of what the show was there. I'm not going to review the shows, because the shows this year, just because I didn't see Nightmare Fuel in the theater this year, I don't plan on seeing it in the theater this year. And the fiasco with Ghoulish, which we'll talk a little bit about later, and Ian and all our stuff, I still have not yet seen Ghoulish, and I don't want to watch Ghoulish online and give an impression on it. So unless Ghoulish comes back before the event is over, I'm not going to review Ghoulish, because Ghoulish is still currently not running as of the recording of this video, which is, like I said, the Tuesday before, so I will not be talking about the shows. Instead, I'm going to focus on what I did like, and one of the reasons why I didn't rush to go see Nightmare Fuel is because I had too much fun at the event otherwise. So, but anyway, so getting back to what I was saying before, I apologize for the lack of content. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we end the video. But I met a lot of people this year. There was a lot of, probably more so this year than ever in the past. I had so many people come up to me this year during the event and just say how much they enjoyed watching my stuff and, whatever. I am so grateful for that. I put a lot of effort into HHN Legacy, I think I put out good content, but the fact that people do watch and acknowledge it, I think is even better, because I do it for you. I've often said that when I do like history videos and stuff like that, like I know that the diehards and stuff, they already know that stuff. I don't make it for the diehards. I do it because I like talking about the event, and I like to to have other people know about things and the knowledge and stuff like that. So I do it for you guys, and I appreciate that. We'll talk more about sort of the future as we move forward here, going into the year 2023. I can't believe it's gonna be 2023. It is what it is, but yeah. So I apologize about the shows. I know I'm not really a big show guy at Horror Nights anyway. I enjoy. Bill and Ted when it was there. We won't mention the other show at the moment, but I enjoyed both shows. It is what it is, but I'm not one to rush out and look at the shows or watch the shows. That's just not what I'm there for. I'm there for the horror as it is. I'm there for the houses. I'm there for the scare zones. I'm there for the food. I'm there for the merch, all that stuff. So those are nice, but Ian, I think, sort of messed up a lot of things, especially in terms of Ghoulish, because I dragged my feet a little bit on watching the show, and then Ian came in and basically, took that away. And like I said, as of the recording of this video, Ghoulish is still not operating, so I can't comment on Ghoulish, and I don't want to. That's a show that I don't want to watch on the internet and sort of give my impressions on. That's a show that I want to watch in person, and by proxy to the Nightmare Fuel stuff. I don't want to give my impression on something that I wasn't physically there for, but I have seen the show. I've seen what the show is through videos online. I've seen the show, so rest assured. But I just think it would be unfair to sort of rate that in that way. So let's talk a little bit about Halloween Horror Nights 31. There's been a lot of talk this year about how something feels off, something feels different. I never really truly got that vibe this year. I think that there is. I have a couple theories on some things. I think that some of the diehards out there sort of know that this year's event was sort of spearheaded by people who have been with Horror Nights for a long time, but who are now basically in charge. They're the guys who are putting on the event, like Laura Wallace or Laura Souls. Those people have been elevated to sort of front and center. They're the ones who are putting on the event. And I think subconsciously there might be something there where like, oh, well, Mike is not really involved anymore. I mean, he still has a little bit of a hand, but he's not like directly involved with doing the event right now. He's busy working on Epic. Patrick Willard left, and of course we lost Rick Spencer. I think Patrick is still, I think he's been rehired, sort of freelance, doing stuff with Epic. Don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure that that's what the case is now. But there's kind of a new team in place. So I think subconsciously there might be some of that in there. This year, I've kind of said to some people this year that the event sort of feels like Halloween Horror Nights 27 back there in 2017, where there are things that they're doing. They're trying some things, trying new things. Some creative decisions are a little bit different. Especially some lighting changes too, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But even just designing sets and houses, I think there was a little bit of a different approach this year. So they're kind of doing different things this year that might feel, to some people, might feel off. I didn't really get that vibe. I just thought it was them trying different things. In terms of like the scare zones, for example, we all know that the scare zones. They had a lot more that they could do this year because they didn't have the parade, so there was a lot more sort of involved in putting the scare zones together. One of the big things across the board that I did notice was the lighting. A lot of the lighting this year was was very muted. There was, especially in the scare zones and even in a lot of the houses, there was definitely a toned down vibe in terms of lighting this year. Of course, the park-wide audio has gotten a lot of talk online. A lot of rockabilly this year. Somebody on that team really likes rockabilly, so there's a lot of rockabilly in the sort of generic park-wide audio. I kind of got used to it over the course of the event. Reverend Horton Heat, like he's a big part of that soundtrack this year. There's still that one song. I believe it's the Reverend Horton Heat song that just in my mind sounds like the opening theme to King of the Hill. Every time I hear it, that's all I hear is the opening theme to King of the Hill. But that's really kind of all that I noticed in terms of this feeling of something seems off. I think there's also a little bit of a burnout. I think a lot of people last year because of the pandemic and the canceled year, and I think there was a much bigger desire from a lot of the diehards and the fans to sort of rush out last year and do the event as much as possible last year because they were making up for lost time. I think there's some burnout there, and I think that sort of carried over to this year. And you combine that with sort of the new team that's putting things together, and some of the little details that we're not used to. 2 brand new locations this year in terms of houses, stuff like that. So there were different things, different changes throughout the course of the event, but I don't think that there was anything that was really off. It still felt like the same old event to me. It just felt like they were there were some things that they were doing different. That they were trying different things, especially when it came to set design and lighting, and the sort of upgraded scare zones, because we really haven't seen scare zones like this in quite some time in terms of the props and stuff like that. Like, these were full blown on scare zones like we used to see. So I really like this year. I think that even with some of the things that they were trying, some of the new with the sets and the lights and stuff like that, I think that this year is a good year. It's a solid year. I don't think that there was a really a fail. There was one area that I think they need to work on, that I've sort of noticed this trend, especially post-pandemic. Not really, we're still in the pandemic, but like coming off of COVID and stuff like that. Like, there is one area that I will address a little bit later. But overall, I had a really good time this year. Despite my sort of the panic attacks and stuff like that I did have at the event, I did have a good time. I enjoyed all the houses for the most part, even the one that I currently ranked dead last. I had a good time in that house despite its flaws. I do think that this year was a solid year. I don't think it was I don't think it's a sort of a GOAT year, or even like a really, 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 really good year. I think it's a solid year that's sort of kind of in a transitional year where there's different cogs in the wheel are there that are sort of steering the ship into a new sort of era for Howling Horror Nights post, of course, 30th anniversary. So I had a good time. There is a problem, I think, with the crowds. The crowds, every time I hear people complain about the crowds, I sort of shrug it off, because Hornets is a crowded event. It's been a crowded event for a long time. I still don't think the crowds are as bad as we saw like in 2012, 2013, 2014. There were 1 or 2 days this year where things got a little crazy, but for the most part, the crowds I thought were elevated, but not like not those years where you had like The Walking Dead consistently have a 130-minute wait, or even post that, when we started having Stranger Things, the first Stranger Things year, that house consistently had like a 130-minute wait, sometimes even a 150-minute wait. Most of the wait times for the houses sort of averaged, on busier nights between 60 and 75, unless you were one of the big IPs. Now, I observed that consistently the houses with the longest wait times were Halloween and the Horrors of Blumhouse. Those two houses consistently always had 90-minute waits on really busy nights, and in some cases 2-hour waits, or on the anomaly days, 150-minute waits, 2-hour waits and stuff like that. Those were the two that really had the longer wait times. Everything else was kind of fluctuated between 45 and 75 minutes on the really, really, busier nights. For the most part, excuse me, my voice is not used to talking this much anymore. On the really, really big, on the really, really busier nights, those two houses seem to have, like I said, Halloween Blumhouse, those two houses really seem to have like the longest wait times, followed closely by The Weeknd and Dead Man's Pier. Those ones kind of really had the longest wait times. But again, it proves that the IPs sell, man. People who are familiar with Halloween, people who are familiar with the Freaky and the Black Phone, like that name sells. So, it is what it is. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about the houses. My final rankings of the houses. We'll get past that little house cleaning stuff about the event first. Overall, like I said, I enjoyed the year. I'll give the overall event a rating like I normally do at the end of this video. But I had a good time. Like I said, not the greatest GOAT of all years, but a good year, a solid year. There are little things here and there that need to be tweaked going forward. And we'll talk about one of them a little bit later. So let's do the final. Now, again, whenever I do these rankings, I never call them best. I always call them my favorites, or, because they're mine. They're my favorites. Not saying that, one is better designed or whatever than something else. These are just the ones that I enjoyed the most. So coming in at number 10 is actually one that I thoroughly enjoy just because of how fucking weird it is. But I also have to admit to myself, it's the weakest house there. Hellblock Horror. We all know the story by now about Hellblock Horror, about, it was not supposed to be Hellblock Horror. They had to change it at the last minute. I said this before. I really kind of, I thought that sort of the thrown together nature of this sort of added to the weirdness of it. And I kind of really love the weirdness of this house. Very, very, very much so. Obviously, I mean, just in terms of scare factor and flow and stuff like that, like things were very weak in here, but it was just so fucking weird. And so, half the time I didn't know what the hell was going on. I think in my initial, the rankings at the beginning of the year, I said that it seemed like it was like on an alien ship or something like that. I don't think that's the case. Having gone to the house a couple times, it's just a very bizarre, prison, supernatural prison. Who knows where the prison is? It's got this core, that needs to be detonated to kill all these things that have run amok. It's just, and again, they tweaked things here and there as they went forward. They added more actors. Some of the lighting was even muted more in this house in certain areas as we went forward throughout the course of the event. I still enjoyed this house for what it is, but it is what it is. It definitely was, I think, the weakest executed house that was there, but I still love it for how fucking bizarre and weird it is. It will always have a special place in my heart. But coming in at number 10 is going to be Hellblock Horror. Coming in at number 9 is going to be The Horrors of Blumhouse. Like I said before, I think it is the strongest Blumhouse incarnation that we've had at the event so far. I'm still very disappointed at the lack of Freaky in here. But if we're going to, go from Hellblock to Blumhouse, Blumhouse is a good house. It's a solid house. The stuff in the Black Phone works really well. It is very creepy, especially the Black Phone part. It's very atmospheric, very creepy. I'm surprised they were able to pull off the Black Phone part, to be honest with you. Just overall, a good experience. Even the freaky stuff, the stuff that was there, I really enjoyed the freaky stuff. It seems like they, especially in the freaky part of the house, it seemed like they wanted to do more in there, but for whatever reason, they just never got around to finishing some things in there. I don't know, just there's that one part with the mascot, the little beaver sitting on the chair. It just felt like there was more that they wanted to do in there and just never got around to doing. But overall, the Blumhouse, the Horrors of Blumhouse, I thought was very well executed. Like I said, I think the strongest of Blumhouse houses that we've had so far. And I would not be surprised if going forward, because of how successful the house was, especially given with with the wait times and stuff like that we see more Blumhouse stuff going forward. And of course, with now we have things like the Five Nights at Freddy's, I think, is in the wings and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if we actually see more Blumhouses in the future. The new Halloweens, I don't think we'll ever see those incarnations here just because of the Disney connection that's still there. I think that there's still stuff there tied in with rights issues and stuff like that. So I don't think we'll ever see the new ones. I could be wrong. Just because of that, the House of Mouse, I think, has a little bit more of a hold on those new incarnations than we think. So I don't think we'll ever see that. But overall, I liked Blumhouse. I thought Blumhouse was good. It was solid. With some little things here and there, especially in the freaky section, I don't think worked quite as well. So that's number 9. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Bugs Eaten Alive. I wasn't sold on this house opening weekend. I thought that they oversold it for what it was. I think Bugs is fine. I'm just a little disappointed in exactly the execution of it. I said in the hype video that, of course, it wouldn't be a video without some kind of noise coming in from outside. I try to do these things where there's no freaking noise, and of course there's noise. I do like how they leaned into the sort of 50s sci-fi B-movie aspect, the sort of comedy of it all. I thought that was fine, but I thought the overall execution of the scariness of the bugs. I mean, if you are scared of bugs, if you have a genuine, deathly fear of bugs, I could see how you would, not like this house in a good way. But for me, it just kind of overall didn't really work. I mean, it was fine for what it was. I thought that some, like I said, the comedy I really liked. I liked the story with the exterminator and and all that stuff. I thought it's kind of genius to put it next to Men in Black, because it kind of has that sort of same convention feel, the 50s convention feel. I thought was kind of interesting, because it does kind of match that that sort of that whole thing. But overall, the scares in here, like I said, unless you were deathly afraid of bugs, I think that you can get through this house pretty fine and be like, that was okay. I thought the room that sort of simulated all the bugs, I don't think that quite worked as well as they wanted it to. This house seemed to have, in terms of like the actor ratio, I think this one had like the most that throughout the course of the event. I saw less and less. There were a lot of holes that were there in the beginning. Which I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but like I say all the time, Horror Nights changes throughout the course of the event. There's things that are added, taken away, stuff like that. Opening night, for example, in the Bugs house, there was the security guard that was being eaten by the cockroach. That was a live person on opening night. There was an actual live actor that was being eaten by the cockroach that kind of got replaced over time with a dummy being eaten by the cockroach. So like this one kind of had that sort of that problem going forward. Don't really know why. Maybe they just decided, that poor actor had to lay there. That live actor had to lay there the entire time and get eaten by a cockroach. They probably were like, let's not do this. So like that guy got nixed or whatever. Overall, I thought it was a fine house. It was fun, but like I said, I think it was the most disappointing of all the houses this year. The one that I think I was really looking forward to, and it just kind of didn't hit the note for me that I wanted it to at the end of the day. Still a fun house. Of course, overall, still a fun house. Like I said, I really like the concept of the sort of the more comedic aspect, the sort of 50s sci-fi B-movie thing with like the whole with the bugs and that type of thing. I thought that worked very well, but overall kind of a disappointing house, but still fun, still enjoyed it, but coming in at number 8. So moving up on the list is coming in at number 7 is going to be Spirits of the Coven, a house that sort of got better for me over time. It's another example of things that they added. They sort of they added more dialogue, a pre-recorded dialogue to try their best to have the story convey more of what was going on. Overall, still don't think that they nailed that aspect of it. I do really like the atmosphere in this house. I thought, the sort of two-part aspect of the story, starting in the speakeasy, then going into the caves, and sort of the aftermath of people being turned into this witch's brew. I really like that whole aspect of the house. Really kind of creepy in here. Overall, not too scary, but but does have this sort of overall eerie vibe to it, especially how the possessed guys are in this house. The witches were kind of a little disappointing, in terms of that. I don't really didn't really like the makeup job here with as they turn into the sort of the hag witches at the end. That whole thing didn't really kind of work for me, but overall, I thought the house improved a lot over the course of the event, especially in terms of really trying to convey the story of what actually is going on in here. I thought the actors were much more energetic as we moved forward throughout the course of the event. Solid house, just a little disappointing in terms of the execution of, like I said, the storyline and stuff like that. Overall, solid house. So Spirits of the Coven going to land at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is going to be The Weekend After Hours Nightmare. Originally had this at number 5, opening weekend, no pun intended. This one also seemed to have a little issue going forward. It was still a fun house, still a great house, but I thought some of the energy in the house, some of the energy was kind of sucked away as the event went on. They sort of changed some actors around in here. They changed the lighting in here. This was one of the more brighter houses early on in the event. And then as the event moved forward, they sort of dimmed the lighting a little bit more, added some more strobes and things like that. So this one did have a lot of changes going throughout the course of the event. Overall, still a fun house. I really like the sort of this whatever it is, the lick the toad or whatever. Like that's kind of the whole vibe here, where it's like this giant fever dream that's going on here. Like I thought that aspect was very, 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 very well done. Very fun house. Not necessarily the comedy house. The comedy house would be the Bugs house. This year. With this one kind of being more just fun. It was a fun overall vibe in here. I think it actually quieted a lot of people who were like, "Oh, the weekend should be here because it's horror." It works. Like it worked fine. I had a lot of fun in here. I love the costumes in here. I just love the sort of ethereal vibe that's in here. This sort of, like I said, fever dream. Great scares in here too. Whatever that was, the Velcro little thing there. That was a very effective scare. Sort of one of two things coming at you this year with the train. That was very effective as well. Overall, I really liked the weekend. Over the course of the event, I thought something was missing here in terms of like the intensity, because like that first weekend the actors were really, really intense. And just brought the house up a little bit. But over the course of time, it just kind of dwindled, which is understandable because it's a long event. So, it is what it is. But overall, I thought it was a great house, very well executed, very fun, very colorful, very bloody, very gory in this house. The giant toad guy that was on the stilts, I thought that whole thing was cool because that's like sort of a motif, like whatever this lick the toad thing is. Like I've said before, I am not as well versed in the weekend's music, so I have no idea what all this shit means. But the sort of I guess that's a thing, the lick the toad, whatever. Like that whole the thing there with I thought that the costumes were creepy with the toad monster demon thing. That was pretty cool. And of course, there's that version is on the stilts in the subway. So overall, really enjoyed the weekend. A lot of fun, very gory. This house was I think a lot gorier than probably a lot of people were expecting. So very cool. So the weekend comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5 is the house that was at number 10 on my list opening weekend. This is the house that changed the most for me, and that is Descendants of Destruction. This house is very intense. This house was they sort of like I said, that first run through the house, I was kind of it was the first house that we did, so it was kind of a little still overwhelming. I was getting used to my new camera, filming all that stuff. But as I did the house more and more, I just fell in love with this concept, with the actors in here. They brought it every single time. They were very loud, very energetic. I love how they fit this whole subway vibe into the sprung tents. I like walking through the train, seeing the train, that one part where the train is sort of crashed and you've got the skeleton hanging out of one of the windows. I thought all that stuff was really well done. And, this one, I thought the conveying of the story, because one of the things that I didn't quite get on the first night was sort of this notion that this house is like in 3 parts, you sort of see the progression of the evolution of these cannibalistic sort of human beings who have descended into the subway because of a apocalypse or something. Like I thought that was conveyed pretty well in here. It's the sort of demarcation lines of each version I thought was very well prominent and pronounced. And each version I thought did a good job. The only one that I didn't really quite really enjoy was the last version, the sort of the bioluminescent, when they're fully evolved. That one I don't think worked quite as well. I thought the first 2 parts were a lot better than that last half. That last half just kind of seemed like a little bit of an afterthought. Just, here's some walls and some black lights, do that. But overall, really, really liked Descendants of Destruction. I would love to see more of this sort of going forward here. But yes, the house that over the course of the run changed the most for me was Descendants of Destruction. I really like this house. Like I said, very intense, not as gory as say like The Weeknd, but like there's that underlining cannibalistic sort of nature of these human beings that's very well prominent in the house. Not very gory, like I said, but a lot of great scares in here. A lot of jumpy scares here as well. We got the ghillie suit man in here, so that's always a good time. Costumes are great in here. The sets, like I said, very impressive for a sprung tent. Like I said, I love the trains. The train aspect, the whole train vibe, the whole subway vibe I thought was very well conveyed in here. So the house that changed the most for me, Descendants of Destruction, coming in, going from number 10, going to number 5 in the final rankings. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Halloween. I love this house. I thought this was for a while there. This was the house that had the most scares. This was the one that had that was the creepiest. That had the most jump scares. That was taken by another house, which sort of ramped up things a little bit. As the run kept going. Love this house though. I thought the execution of this was great. I still think that the 2014 house was better, but I like this iteration of it, sort of the same but different take on it. Seeing different aspects of what we saw in the first house, I thought was very unique. I really like seeing the Myers house. That whole section of the house where you're, in the sort of alleyways of Haddonfield, I thought was great. I love the Michael Myers is in here. Those actors brought it every single damn time. They knew their roles, they knew who Michael Myers was, and they weren't going to skimp on trying to scare you as Michael Myers. So yeah, like I said, I do think the 2014 house was better than this, but I still think that they did a really good job here. I love that last room with the mirrors and all the different Michael Myers. I could have sworn that at the beginning of the event they changed around the dummies, with where the live actors were. I don't think that's the case. I think that's just the psychological aspect of it, actually getting to be a little bit. But I love that last room. An example of what I thought that they did better in the 2014 version, for example, like the closet part of this house, I thought was done much better in the 2014 version. This version I thought was interesting in how they pulled or what they did here as well, but not as good as the 2014 version. Still, they managed to get some good scares in that one little section. I love the, of course the kitchen kill. That's always fun. I always seem to miss when he came out. I always saw him when he went back, when he did the little hell tail and go back. But like I said, overall, I really like this house. This house was very, very, very intense. The actors, like I said, they brought it every single time. The people that played the Michael Myers. I love the entrance. The sort of, we're going to show you the Michael Myers as a kid killing his sister. Then you go into that little, John Carpenter's Halloween. That I love that aspect of it. I thought they did that very well to sort of transition into the actual, Halloween itself. I thought was very, very, very well done. I love this house. This house brought all the feels for me. Like I said, still not as good as the 2014 version, but still a solid representation of Halloween, the original film. So coming in at number 3 is going to be Fiesta de Chupacabras, another one that I really, really love. This one seemed to be one that I think people either loved or hated. I really like how fun this house is. A lot of good scares in here. I know there's some people that were disappointed in, say, the actual Chupacabra looks themselves. I mentioned this in the opening weekend video. I was surprised they went with this look for the Chupacabra, but I thought it worked. I thought it worked pretty well. The puppeteers, the people who did the puppetry on the Chupacabras, I thought they did a very cool job, just bringing those things to life. I just love the vibe in here. From when you first walk into the village, a trend that I talked about in the original opening weekend video was this notion about layers in terms of building the houses themselves. This is one of those where when you first walk in, you see the sort of the village and the layers of the houses as you're looking, down the rooftops. I thought that was incredibly cool. The sort of party atmosphere being lured into this, as tourists being lured into being food or fodder for the chupacabras, I thought worked very well. This one's another one that is a very gory house. I still love, one of my favorite gags is the guy that gets dragged, the little dummy body that gets dragged or whatever. A lot of little like trigger things going on, like with garbage cans and things of that nature. I thought that that was really cool. I love the firecrackers, the little hangy firecrackers to mimic this sort of celebration. Thought that was really cool. The actors are really good in here. I love the vibe of this house. Very fun. Sort of got that dark, comedic, twisted sense of humor to it, which I always love. I love this house. But I know that I think that this was kind of a divisive house for some people. I think some people either really liked it or didn't like it as much. But I really like this house. I still really like this house. It's one of the houses that I always make sure that I go to at least once when I'm there. There were 4 houses that I always made sure to hit, every time I was at the event. And this is one of them. Halloween was another one that I always made sure to try to hit as many times when I was there. But like I said, this one, with Halloween, Halloween was always the wait times for Halloween were always large. people were drawn to Halloween, even during Stay and Scream. It was always the one that people went to right outside of Stay and Scream. So I would often find myself like that one. Like I said earlier in the year, this is the first year I've ever bought Express, ever had Express. This one, in terms of the Express line, or Halloween, I should say, had some problems with the Express line sometimes, as well as Fiesta de Chupacabras. Like those two seem to have issues with the Express line all the time. I didn't run into the issues that people had with bugs. I never really had an issue with the Express line over there. But the ones that I seem to have the most issues with were Halloween and Fiesta de Chupacabras, but I went to those all the time. So the ones that I tried to do all the time. So, like I said, as many times I was there. I love Chupacabras. I love doing Chupacabras kind of in the middle of the night when I'm there. It's sort of like a refresher because this one is also got that dark sort of humor to it. And it's a breezy house, It's one of those that's like, oh my God, this is so good. You kind of, you're kind of ushered through it at sort of a really cool clip, a good pace. But I love this house. So coming in at number 3, Fiesta de Chupacabras. So we get to the top 2. Might be a little controversial of a decision coming up here, but I had to go with my gut. Coming in at number 2 is going to be Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Wake. Now hear me out here. Both number 1 and number 2, which should be no surprise what number 1 is at this point, but both houses are extremely good. Dead Man's Pier, I think, has the better aesthetic, no doubt, hands down. Dead Man's Pier is one of the most beautiful houses I think Horror Nights has ever created, if not ever. I mentioned before about the layers. Dead Man's Pier, I think, is the one that does it the best in terms of this sort of notion of looking at layers as you, from your perspective, perspective on your vision. I think this one does it the best. Where I think this one kind of gets knocked a little bit for me is in the scare factor. Now, I know I'm going to have people like, oh, I don't get scared. I don't go in houses and get scared. For me, I still look for the scare factor in houses. If a house doesn't have the jump scares for me, or if I don't get startled or things of that nature, then it kind of goes down a little bit. But Dead Man's Pier is so well put together. It was so hard for me to knock it in that aspect, but I had to go with my instinct here. Dead Man's Pier is still a fantastic house. I just wish there were more scares here. The costumes, the sets, the way this thing was put together is just phenomenal. This is going to be one of those houses that you're going to hear the fanboys cry about for years when other houses don't quite live up to what this house did. They might, try it again in the future, and it might not live up to Deadman's Pier standards. But just fantastic. From the moment you walk into that village, I said this before in the opening weekend video, from the moment you walk into that village, you are just in awe of what you are looking at, and it does not kind of let up at all. The only part of this house that I think I didn't quite work for me was the very, very end. When you're actually in the boat, and there's the flying guy, which another one of those things that I was sort of worried wouldn't sort of carry over throughout the course of the event. This one was sort of hit or miss. Either the scare actor was on the little zip line thing or not. More often than not, when I was in the house, the guy was never there. So I never got to see really the guy on the zip line. I mean, he was there, but he was not there more often than he was there. But that final room I thought was kind of disappointing. Given what you just came from, you go through that final little stretch where the zipline guy is, and that just doesn't live up to what you just experienced. But other than that, this house, like I said, phenomenal. The story going on here is very haunting. It captures the tone of that story. The sort of haunting nature of this story is just so well executed in this house. Like I said, gonna be a house you're gonna be hearing about for a long time from the fanboys about exactly the execution of this house. Just phenomenal. This house is so good. I cannot emphasize how good this house is. It was also the one that I tried to, because this year was one of the first times in a long time that I went solely by myself. Usually I have, at some point, if I'm by myself throughout the course of the event, I usually meet somebody. But this was the case where, as of the recording of this video, I am not actually gone with anybody else. So I made it a point this year to sort of listen to a lot of what people were saying, like the sort of chatter of what guests were sort of saying this year. Sort of, eavesdropping, I guess would be a good term. People watching in general. And when people were getting out of Deadman's Pier, there seemed to be a lot of, oh my God, that was so beautiful. Like, everyone had the same reaction. Oh my God, that was so beautiful. Everyone was so high up on this house. So I wouldn't be surprised if the general public was, they were like, oh, well, Halloween. But I think there's a contingent of people who really, really, really love Deadman's Pier just because they were sucked into that world that was created by the team. There's also there's little nods in there to Rick Spencer, of course. Rick Spencer passed away this past year. There are nods to Rick Spencer in this house. So look out for that. Or if you know it, then put down below what the references are to Rick Spencer. But there are nods to him in here. This house is just phenomenal. There's not a whole lot more that you can say other than this house is just so well put together, so well, just beautiful. It's just a beautiful house to walk through. And like I said, one of those houses you're going to hear forever for people, about how pretty this house is. So coming in at number 1, Universal Monsters Legends Collide. I love this house. Like Deadman's Pier, the design here is so good. But I think that this house had the better scares. This house had the better energy from the actors. They brought it every single time. They were popping out at every angle that you can get. I think this house does a good job of lulling you into a false sense of security. As you first, the segment there where we're doing, where the priest is doing the sort of a ritual. Up until a little, like a room or two after that, you sort of have this false sense of, oh, this is not going to be that bad. And then shit starts coming at you from all fucking angles, and it is so good. Like I said, the actors really, really, really made this house something else. I love how you are. This is the first, like we had Freddy versus Jason a while ago, and Alien versus Predator. I think this house does a much better job at you making you feel like you are in the middle of the battle. And at one point, the monsters turning on you during the battle twice during this house, I thought was so well done. Of course, there's the one that everyone talks about, which is the Dracula on the bungee cord, and then you got the Wolfman and the mummy coming at you from the other two sides. I think that represents really well the sort of battle that you're in. This sort of, with the fighting for this amulet thing, I thought that it just did such a great representation. I might be a little biased because I've said this before about the Universal Classic Monsters, but I think legitimately this house does a very good job, or did a very good job. It was, I think the house that had the best scares, the best scare tactics. It had the look, and again, dealing with those layers, walking in, you see the sort of, the Egyptian dig site, but then you can see like the sky where you've got the moon and you've got the clouds and you've got the sun at one point. I mean, like it just overall, I can see where some people might dock it because you are in the in the pyramids, as it were, a little bit too much, I think. But at the same time, I thought what they had to work with, I thought was so good. I love the little, the sort of the hint at the beginning too of the Anubis statue, which is missing. You've got because the Anubis is one of the scares that's in this house. There is the one part at the beginning where you see the two Anubis statues, and one is missing. It's supposed to be three, but one is missing. Like it's so well executed. I was just so giddy about this house. Like I said at the very beginning of the run that between Dead Man and Legends Collide, it was probably going to be a battle between aesthetics, but I think that Legends Collide did such a good job of ramping up everything as the event went on, that it just overtook Dead Man's Pier in terms of just the sheer number, just the scare factor alone, just the jump scares. I thought was so well executed in this house. I love the way that they did some of these scares in here, and of course you've got the aspect at the end. There's a winner, all the time. I seem to have a pretty good mix of a winner every time I went in there. I did see all three, win as it were, even though it's technically not a win because the story continues in the house over there in Hollywood. So technically not a win, but there is a winner. So it is what it is. But I love this house. This is probably my favorite Universal Classic Monsters house that they've done so far, and that's saying a lot because I really loved The Bride of Frankenstein Lives last year, but I think this might be my favorite. And I hope we could get a lot of flack for this, but I hope they do more. Continue with this run of the Universal Classic Monsters. I love this. I have a feeling they're going to take a break from the Universal Classic Monsters for a year, but I wish that a year or two maybe. That's just my gut instinct. I have a feeling they're going to take a break. But I love when they use the monsters, and I love this house. This house, hands down, my favorite of the year. A little bit of a tough decision, I'm not going to lie, just because Dead Man's Pier is just so well put together. But I think that the scares, the vibe, and the atmosphere, the scare actors in Legends Collide were just so on point all the time. And like I said, I love the story. And I love how it just lulls you into that false sense of security as you progress throughout the house, because this house ramps up. It's one of those houses where the first couple of rooms you're like, oh, it's neat, the priest and stuff, and then it just gets intense. It just ramps the fuck up as you go through, and it doesn't let up. It doesn't let up until you get to the very end. So, is it a little repetitive? Yeah, a little bit. It is a little repetitive as you get towards the end, but. I just love the execution here. I love the scares. I love the actors. I love it. My favorite house of Halloween Horror Nights 31, Universal Monsters Legends Collide. So, let's move on. Excuse me, what the hell was that? Let's move on to the scare zones. Like I alluded to early, earlier. This was an up year for Scare Zones. They really got to do a lot that they weren't able to do the past couple years. I think all the Scare Zones, with the exception of one, were really well put together, and they all have their own individual merits. So coming in at dead last is the Horrors of Halloween. They did add fire to the Pumpkin Lord, as the event went on. But this one is just your run-of-the-mill introductory Scare Zone up there at the front of the park. It was fine, I guess. I think it's a lot better than some of the more glorified photo ops that we've had in that area in the past couple years. Whether it was Altars of Horror or whatever. I think this is probably the strongest one that they've done in that area in quite some time, especially when it comes to the look of it. Even last year's I thought was, I think, a little bit better in terms of the atmosphere there. But it is what it is. It's the introductory zone. It is what it is. So there's that. It's Horrors of Halloween. Coming in at number 4, Conjure the Dark. Love this Scare Zone. Love the story that's going on in here. I think the show that they had was a nice touch. I think the witch that they had there always brought it every single time. The howl, all that stuff. I love the sort of concept of bringing in these monsters from different realms and creating Halloween. I thought worked very well. The costumes I thought were really cool in here. Of course, they reused a lot of stuff. That's another trend that you saw this year. There was a lot of reusing of things this year, to save money, as it were. So Conjure the Dark had a lot of that this year, especially with the little cavey things and whatnot. They've used that stuff before. But I've heard some people complain about the music in here. I thought that the music was fine. It sort of fit the rock, heavy metal vibe that was going on in here. But overall, a great Scare Zone, great costumes, great energy from the actors. Love the story. Good times. Coming in number 3 is going to be Scarecrow, Cursed Soil. Another one that took full advantage of putting as much shit as they could into a Scare Zone. Another one of the ones that suffered, from the lack of lighting. This is one of those you could definitely notice that they toned down the lighting a lot, but it's always dark in the Central Park Scare Zone, so that really wasn't a big issue. But I love this Scare Zone. I thought all the actors were great. The costumes were really good. The sort of utilizing the sheds and the outhouses and stuff like that. The pig guy I thought was really fun. I love the old car. The windmill really sets the tone and vibe of what they're doing in here. Just an overall great zone. So coming in at number 2 is going to be Graveyard, Deadly Unrest. I know this is the vloggers, bloggers. This is like their favorite Scare Zone. I love this Scare Zone, much like between Legends Collide and Dead Man's Pier. I think both number 1, number 2 are kind of neck and neck or whatever. I just like the vibe more in number 1, in my number 1 Scare Zone. I love the tone in here, the atmosphere, the sort of creepy, spooky nature of this Scare Zone. I thought it was great. It made great use of that, the lighting, the story, the setting. I thought was really well put together here. The scare actors, the twins. I love the twins. That was a great little addition there. Death and Sleep or whatever. I thought those were great. The costumes in this, especially with those 2 characters, I thought was just incredible. The vibe, the creepy tone factor of the Scare Zone is just phenomenal. Probably wouldn't be surprised if we get this gets an upgrade into a house at some point. This is one of those that I can see getting an upgrade. It is what it is, but I love Graveyard, Deadly Unrest. It's just, I like the vibe. In my number 1, more Sweet Revenge. I mentioned this before. This is definitely the Scare Zone they wanted you to spend the most time in. It was definitely the one that was the most populated. It was definitely the one they put the most effort into creating. I love the story going on here. I love the music. I love the scare actors in here. They were always fun to watch. They were always interactive. I was walking around one night and I have a little Foxy plush that's usually in one of my bags. One of the scare actors saw the Foxy plush, and because they're supposed to be kids, so saw the Foxy plush and was like, "Oh my god!" I love that stuff. I love when they do stuff like that. I'm not one to sort of linger around scare actors, but I love when they have like those little personal interactions with people. Those spontaneous type of things. That is always fun to me. But I love the scare actors in here. I thought they always brought it. I just love the tone, the vibe. It was just great, and one of those that sort of benefited from the fact that they didn't have the parade. They had we were able to put a lot more stuff in the streets. The lighting I thought was great in here, even though it did have the sort of more muted lighting. I thought this was like the brightest one, but I love the story. I love how it ties into the tribute store. I love what they did here. So that's it. That's kind of bittersweet, but those are my lists, my favorites of the year. So let's go ahead and quickly recap my houses. Coming at number 10 is going to be Hell Block Horror. Coming in at number 9, The Horrors of Blumhouse. Number 8, Bugs Eaten Alive. Number 7, Spirits of the Coven. Number 6, The Weekend After Hours Nightmare. Number 5, Descendants of Destruction. Number 4, Halloween. Number 3, Fiesta de Chupacabras. Number 2, Dead Man's Pier, Winter's Awake. Number 1, Universal Monsters Legends Collide. Scare Zones, Horrors of Halloween coming in at number 5. Number 4, Conjure the Dark. Number 3, Scarecrow, Cursed Soil. Number 2, Graveyard, Deadly Unrest. Number 1, Sweet Revenge. So let's talk a little bit about some other things, some things that I think can be need to be addressed or improved. I love the fact that they're offering more food vibes for people to do, but I think placement is going to be an issue going forward. I have noticed that since the parks reopened after COVID, that there has been a lot more issues with more people in line for food. And for Horror Nights specifically, with all the food options, more people go to have those food options. I think putting the themed food tents down, whatever that is, Fifth Avenue, I think was a mistake. I think because the other food tents are usually always there, the ones that are in between the Transformers bar and that street there. Those food tents are always there. But I think the sort of doing the Mardi Gras thing, putting the food tents, down Fifth Avenue, I think is a mistake. I think those need to not be there anymore. I think that just overcrowds with the lines, and even overall, I think you're putting the food tents that are in between, in the kid zone area. I don't think quite work, especially as the event is crowded. I don't think it works as well. I just think it creates like a clusterfuck there. Those are issues that I think are going to be with us for a little bit. Until they figure out, a different place to put those things, I think we're going to kind of be stuck with those moving forward. That was a problem that I saw. Sort of the backed up lines. I think having, I'm not sure if it was a staffing issue or whatever the case was, but the actual people cooking the food, I think there was not as many as sort of people taking people's money at the end. I think that might have to change, or maybe put 1 or 2 locations around the park where, I guess it kind of is that way now, but I think it needs to be spread out more and in lower trafficked areas around the park because, where they are currently, I don't think is a good idea. That's just me. It is what it is. That's kind of what I one of the things that I noticed is that the food tents are a problem. Food tents with the lines are a problem. Park-wide audio I addressed earlier. I think the park-wide audio was a little weird this year with sort of the rockabilly aspect of it, the sort of King of the Hill-ish song that I kept hearing over and over again. It does feel a little bit like a transitional year where they're sort of trying to do different things. You know, I never, like I said, never really felt like there was something off this year, but you could definitely see that they were trying different things. There were things that they were trying, whether it was the food in the food tents or whatever. I thought, you know, you could definitely notice those things. That was noticeable. Hurricane Ian, came in and demolished Ghoulish. Ghoulish, I sort of dragged my feet a little bit on watching Ghoulish, and Ian took it away. And as of the recording of this video, Ghoulish is still not back up and running. So I might not get a chance to see Ghoulish this year. It is what it is. You know, like I said, I'm not going to talk about Nightmare Fuel because I didn't see it in person. And I think it'd be unfair to sort of talk about Nightmare Fuel. And if you cannot hear from my voice, I'm losing my voice talking through this, so we're going to go ahead and speed this up. So before I give my final rating of the event, I did want to talk a little bit about the future of H&N Legacy going forward. I've mentioned it many times already. You know, I am dealing with a bunch of stuff. You know, mentally, I'm trying to work on myself. You know, anxiety, depression, PTSD, whatever, you know, whatever else is going on in the back of my head. Going forward, you know, at least for a little bit, I'm going to take an even bigger step back from certain things. The weekly in-park video updates are probably going to cease for a while. I still will probably be at the parks, you know, if I can. And any kind of updates I do will be, you know, via pictures on the Twitters and whatever. But trying to give myself a little bit less of a workload these days to not put, you know, too much pressure on myself to get things done. I am going to continue Into the Fog. In fact, the next episode of Into the Fog, we're going to... That is going to be the next episode of Into the Fog. I don't exactly know when that's going to be up, but I will continue to do those systematically, so those are not going anywhere. As far as, I'm not going to talk about Halloween Horror Nights 32 yet. We're going to keep that for later on in the year. But probably the same thing as last year. You're not going to see as many updates from me, speculation videos and things like that for a while, as I continue to work on myself. But I will still, the website's still going to be there. I'm still going to continue Into the Fog. You know, so on and so forth. And like I said, any kind of updating I do at the parks will probably be done via pictures on Twitter or quick videos on Twitter, things like that, and or Facebook or whatever. But the in-park vlogs probably cease for a while. I don't quite know when or if I will continue those, but we will see. I don't quite know yet. I haven't really made that decision. It's you know, it is what it's an ever-flowing, you know, fluid situation right now. So we will see how that goes. And again, I thank you all for the continued support of H&N Legacy and being patient with me as I deal with all this stuff. So if I was to rate, like I normally do, rate the event this year, I'm going to give Halloween Horror Nights 31 a B-. Solid year. I think for the most part, everything was good. You know, there were a couple of really great things, but things that need to be improved on as we move forward, especially with the new team. Like I said, I had a fun time. I think it was a fun year. You know, yeah, and I can't wait to see what we have for Halloween Horror Nights 32. I can't believe Horror Nights 31 is coming to an end. So that, I think, is going to do it for me today, guys. I hope you all had fun on Halloween Horror Nights 31. Are you happy that it's ending? Because it's been a long run. Hurricanes, you know, other things. I had, you know, friends, personal friends of mine had some tough goes this year during the event. You know, so it was an interesting year for certain things. You know, it is what it is. But I had a good time. You know, like I said, not the goats of all years, but a solid year. I'll leave it at that. Merch-wise, I bought the glasses. I got that. I did buy the Legendary Truth, the Midnight Syndicate album. I did eventually break down and buy that. I got my shot glass, which is right here. I got my shot glass right here. There it is. Gonna work. There it is. I do collect all the shot glasses. I got a shirt this year. There's a couple little things that I still want to get. I think I want to get that plaque with the one that looks like the Creep Show logo. I want to get that. Yeah, I don't really go too balls to the wall when it comes to merch anymore. I sort of pick and choose here and there, and a lot of times I wait till things are discounted, which right now there's a lot of things that are discounted, so it is what it is. But yeah, so hope you all had fun this year. I had fun this year. But like I said, I apologize if things are not as prolific as they usually are or have been in the past. I got things going on. I'm working on. It is what it is. But I had fun. I'm actually kind of glad that Horror Nights 31 is over because it has been a long season. But I had fun. So that is going to do it for me today, guys. As usual, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys next time. Look out for Into the Fog. But that's it. Bye, guys.